Ongoing violence in the trucking industry is raging on, with 29 trucks targeted in the past week alone. Local drivers are protesting against the employment of foreign nationals in the sector, raising fears of rising xenophobia. Earlier this year, the South African Human Rights Commission launched an inquiry into the spate of violence targeted against non-nationals working as long-distance truck drivers. For more on perhaps what's been done now and to speak to the findings of the inquiry, let's bring in Commissioner Chris Nissen, who joins us now via our telephone line. Commissioner, thanks for your time. Welcome to the AM report. Perhaps let's start by taking stock of what's happened over the past few days. Given the mandate of the inquiry, what do you make of what we've seen taking place over the past week? You've just heard I mentioned there are 29 trucks being damaged in the past 2 days alone.
Thank you and good morning to the viewers. First of all, the South African Human Rights Commission condemns the violence and also the potential xenophobic attacks that's linked to it. The Commission held an inquiry in March this year, and the report is ready to be released, to be signed off and to be released. It was hosted and driven by Commissioner Quota, who unfortunately during COVID time has been ill. And now we've finalized the report. In the report, amongst others, we wanted to know from the Department of Labour, what are they doing about the complaints that we received from the Long Distance Trucks Association. We also wanted to know from the South African Police Services, what are they doing about the matter. We also wanted to know from the Department of Trade and Industry in terms of the bosses of these trucks, these companies, in what influenced them to make the kind of decision that boiled down to discrimination.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we have asked them to do. We've now got some of the answers. We will finalize our report before the end of this year.
Right. And of course, in the backdrop, Commissioner, are the simmering tensions between South African drivers and some of the migrant workers, quite frankly, a dynamic that exists outside the industry itself. Speak to me about the strides taken, if any, to address that aspect of this problem.
Yes, indeed. What we've seen is not only with regard to truck drivers in the current situation, we've seen each time when there's a strike or then people get targeted. And sometimes, unfortunately, it is the foreign nationals that get targeted in the strike. And we are very concerned about this matter. And obviously we're engaging even the Department of Home Affairs around the documentation, because some of the complaints are that some of these truck drivers some of them allegedly are illegal and don't have documentation and are at times even held hostage. When I say hostage, not really hostage, by the employer to say, if you don't work, if you don't do this, don't receive this pay, we will report you. And I think many people have been reported that way.
Yeah. And part of what came out of the commission is calls, if you like, for South Africans to always be considered ahead of their migrant counterparts. In principle, how sound is that position, especially once you take into consideration possible human rights violations?
Look, asylum seekers, refugees, and foreign nationals who are documented have got all the rights, enjoy most of the rights in South Africa as South Africans. And it's a very difficult thing to say, put this one ahead of the other one, because the reality, they are in South Africa, they are working here, they contribute towards the economy. So it's very difficult to say, please put them ahead than the consider South Africans first. Obviously, the problem that we have is that we have a huge influx of foreign nationals into our country. Some of them illegal, but most of them documented, and most of them also looking for the documentation. So it's very difficult to say, put South Africans ahead. Obviously, that would be an ideal situation, but we all have to find our place in the sun in South Africa.
Yeah, and I wonder how possible that is, given the constraints on the resources we have. But part of what the police are now saying, I think these were details that were unveiled yesterday, is that the violence we've seen over the past few days might actually extend beyond just this particular point of contention. When you were conducting this inquiry, did you get an idea of any other salient issues that might bleed into the conflict that we're seeing?
Well, that is the police correct. That's one of the reasons for this conflict. But also the fact is that the issue about salary disparities, that foreign migrants are being paid far less than what the normal South Africans would be paid in terms of the Labour Relations Act. Also, we found that it's easy to get cheap labor, especially if a person is undocumented. Those are the kind of things that we found. And obviously, one of the things we're also concerned about in that inquiry, and even what happened last few days, isn't this maybe somebody deliberately or somewhere deliberately stoking this xenophobia attempts by only employing foreign nationals? I can give you another example. In the farming industry, for example, a number of people are being employed, foreign nationals are being employed, and at times when they don't get paid, the farmer or some of them just report them to the police so they can be deported.
Wow. Yeah, and to what end do you think somebody would do that deliberately, though, Commissioner? Help us understand the interests that stand to be served here.
Well, that's why I'm saying it's just a theory. It's not. We've got no evidence linking that. It's just a theory. But the fact of the matter is, why would any South African just only want to employ foreign nationals when an employer has got the responsibility, particularly those employers that benefit from government subsidies, to ensure that there's a balance in his or her employment workers.
Yeah.
Employing the workers.
The All Truck Drivers Foundation has said that Labour Minister Truda Nxesi has made an undertaking to amend the laws, labour laws, at least in their current form, to introduce a new quota that would allow a 40% quota limit for foreign nationals and a 60% for local drivers. Do you see that as potentially solving the problem?
I think so. That's why if there's no willingness from an employer to bring the balance, then a law will probably help that employer and the workers to bring that kind of balance.
All right, let's leave it there. We'll see how the situation pans out moving forward. I imagine, of course, a whole lot of stakeholders will also have their voices heard, given the really troubling scenes that we've seen over the past few days.